Video opens on a slow, painterly shot of a young, timid Prince Canute, his face half hidden in shadow, clutching a cross. The wind whips through a barren, snow-dusted landscape. The music is a single, melancholic cello note. Narrator. There is a lie we tell ourselves when we stand at the foot of a great mountain. The lie is that to climb it, we must become harder, colder. That to reach the summit, some essential part of our soul must be left behind at base camp, frozen in the ice. We believe that compassion is a weight, that sensitivity is a weakness, that love is a liability in the thin air of ambition. We call this the tyrant's bargain. It is the secret contract you sign with yourself when you decide that the only way to win is to become someone you no longer recognize. It is the whisper that says, to build an empire, you must first become a monster. But this video is a promise. A promise that the greatest kings are not those who abandon their hearts, but those who learn to carry them as a crown of thorns. By the end of our time together, you will understand a different path. Not the path of shedding your humanity, but of forging it into a weapon, a shield, and a throne. Video title: The Burden of a Crown. Canute's lonely path to salvation. The scene shifts to intimate, handheld-style shots. A close-up on a nervous hand clenching a fist. A shot of a person staring at their reflection in a dark window, their expression unreadable. The focus is on internal struggle. Narrator. You have felt it, haven't you? That subtle hardening around the edges of your spirit. You're in a meeting, a negotiation, a difficult family conversation. To get what you need, to protect what is yours, you adopt a persona. You become more calculating, more detached. You say the words that need to be said, make the move that needs to be made, and a small, quiet part of you flinches. You tell yourself it is necessary. Strategy. The way the world works. But later, in the quiet of your own home, the silence is heavier. You look at your hands and wonder if they are still your own. The victory feels hollow, the success tastes of ash. This is the insidious nature of the tyrant's bargain. It doesn't feel like a dramatic fall from grace. It feels like a series of small, logical, justifiable compromises. Imagine a young manager, forced to lay off a good, hard-working employee due to budget cuts. She rehearses the speech, focuses on the corporate jargon, restructuring, synergies, right-sizing. She delivers the news with a professional, practiced calm. She tells herself, it's just business. But that night, she cannot sleep. The employee's face, that flash of betrayal and fear, is burned into her mind. She hasn't just performed a task, she has chipped away a piece of her own empathy. She has paid a small tax on her soul, and she knows, deep down, the bill will one day come due. This is the hidden cost of the bargain. The power you gain is counterfeit. It is built not on a foundation of solid rock, but on a scaffold of suppression. You spend so much energy holding back your own humanity, your doubts, your fears, your love, that you become brittle. The crown you fought so hard to win becomes a cage, isolating you from the very people you sought to lead, from the very life you sought to build. You become a king in a kingdom of one, haunted by the ghosts of the person you used to be. The bargain promises you the world, but in the end, it only makes your own inner world a much smaller, colder place. A powerful visual. A crown is slowly lowered onto a head, but as it touches the skin, it transforms into a twisted tangle of thorny branches, drawing a single drop of blood. The shot lingers, then fades to black. The screen brightens. We see the windswept shores of Viking-era England. The visuals are epic, but grounded in a rugged realism. We are introduced to Prince Canute, a figure of profound weakness, hiding behind others, his eyes wide with fear. Narrator. To understand the antidote to this poison, we must travel to the blood-soaked fields of 11th century England. And we must look not to a figure of strength, but to a boy who was the very definition of weakness. Prince Canute of Denmark. When we first meet him, he is pathetic, timid, stuttering, hiding behind his retainers. He is a devout Christian in a world of pagan wolves, a lamb pretending to be a lion. His defining characteristic is love, a gentle, fragile love that makes him utterly unsuited for the brutal world he inhabits. In the calculus of Viking power, his sensitivity is not just a flaw, it is a death sentence. And it is here, in this crucible of violence and despair, that Canute discovers the profound, world-altering truth that is the core of our lesson today. He does not reject the tyrant's bargain by remaining weak. Nor does he accept it by becoming a thoughtless brute like his father. He finds a third path. The solution is this. True power is not achieved by destroying your love, but by universalizing it. It is the transmutation of personal, fragile feeling into an impersonal, divine, and unstoppable force. Knud does not kill his heart. He breaks it open so wide that it encompasses the entire world, and in doing so, he becomes something more than a man. He becomes a king. This philosophy is built on 3 pillars. First, the Great Inversion. This is the recognition that your greatest perceived weakness is, in fact, the raw ore of your most profound strength. For Canute, it was his Christian faith, his capacity for love in a loveless world. He was told it made him weak, unfit to rule. But after the death of his father figure, Ragnar, he has a revelation. He realizes that love is not the problem. The object of the love is the problem. Loving one person makes you vulnerable. Loving one person makes you biased. Loving one person can be selfish. But what if love could be redefined? What if it could be an abstract, all-encompassing force, as cold and as vast as the winter sky? His weakness, his capacity for love, becomes the very engine of his ambition. It is inverted, turned from a personal vulnerability into a universal mandate. Second, the impersonal mandate. This is the act of detaching your decisions from the turbulent sea of personal ego, anger, and desire. Once Canute universalizes his love, he no longer acts for himself. He is not trying to conquer England for glory, or riches, or even revenge. He becomes an instrument of a higher purpose, to create a paradise on earth, a Utopia, for his long-suffering people, the Vikings. A promised land free from the whims of a cruel and distant god. This reframes every brutal decision he must make. Ordering a man's death is no longer a personal sin, a stain on his soul. It is a grim, necessary function. It is the surgeon's cut, painful, bloody, but performed in service of the patient's health. By acting not for Canute, but for the sake of Utopia, he can wield terrible power without being personally corrupted by it. The cruelty is not his, it belongs to the mission. It is a profound psychological shift that allows him to be both ruthless and, in his own mind, righteous. And third, the acceptance of the crown. Canute never pretends his path is easy or painless. He doesn't delude himself into thinking he is a simple hero. He understands the immense, soul-crushing weight of his choices. He feels the cold, the loneliness, the sin. But instead of running from it, he embraces it. The suffering is part of the purpose. The burden is the proof of his conviction. He carries the sins of his kingdom on his own shoulders, and this very act is what purifies his intent. Unlike the tyrant who ignores the pain he causes, Canute absorbs it, metabolizes it, and turns it into fuel. The crown is heavy, and it is meant to be heavy. Think of it like this. Imagine a blacksmith forging a sword. The tyrant's bargain is like trying to hammer cold, unheated iron. You can strike it and strike it, but all you will do is make it brittle. It will be misshapen, weak, and prone to shattering under the slightest pressure. This is the leader who rules by fear and suppression, hard on the outside, but fragile within. Canute's method is the true path of the master smith. He takes the iron, his own sensitive, loving soul, and he places it directly into the fire. The fire is suffering, loss, and the terrible realities of the world. He lets the heat burn away all the impurities, all the selfish, personal attachments. Then, he places it on the anvil and strikes it with the hammer of the impersonal mandate. Every blow is a hard choice, every strike a necessary sacrifice. The process is violent. It is agonizing. But the iron is not destroyed. It is tempered. It is shaped. It emerges from the fire and the hammer not as brittle iron, but as something new, hard, resilient, purposeful steel. A sword fit for a king. He did not abandon his love. He forged it into a weapon. The scene transitions from the historical setting to a more modern, allegorical one. We see stark, minimalist shots of a person's hands, writing, building, creating. The mood is focused and intentional. Narrator. This is not merely the story of a Viking king. It is a blueprint. A guide for escaping the tyrant's bargain in your own life. You do not need an army or a kingdom to wear a crown. Your crown might be your family, your career, your art, your own moral character. And to bear its weight without breaking, you can learn to forge it as Knud did. Here is a practical guide. 4 steps to transform your own burden into your salvation. Step 1. Identify your ore. The tyrant's bargain preys on your insecurity. It convinces you to hide or destroy what you believe is your weakest part. Your first step is to defy this. I want you to take a piece of paper, or open a new document, and ask yourself a difficult question. What is the part of me that I fear makes me weak? Is it your sensitivity? Your tendency to feel things too deeply? Is it your fear of failure, the part that makes you cautious and meticulous? Is it your need for connection, which sometimes makes you feel dependent? Is it your anger at injustice, which feels unproductive and chaotic? Be brutally honest. Write it down. Stare at the word. Now, you must perform the great inversion. Cross out the word weakness and write "or" above it. This is not your poison. It is your raw material. Your sensitivity is not weakness, it is the ore for empathy and profound insight. Your fear of failure is not weakness, it is the ore for diligence and masterful preparation. Your anger is not weakness, it is the ore for a passionate pursuit of justice. You must stop trying to discard this part of yourself and recognize it as the source of your unique power. Step 2. Define your utopia. Knud's actions, however brutal, were anchored to a purpose larger than himself. Without this anchor, he would have been just another bloody-handed warlord. You, too, need an anchor. Your power must serve something beyond your own ego. So, ask yourself, what is my paradise on earth? This is not a vague goal like, be successful, or, be happy. It must be an external, tangible vision. A state of being you want to create in the world. Perhaps your utopia is a family environment where your children feel unconditionally safe and empowered to be themselves. Perhaps it is a company culture that is not only profitable but also deeply humane and fulfilling for its employees. Perhaps it is a body of creative work that brings a specific feeling of solace or understanding to its audience. Define this utopia in one clear, powerful sentence. Write it down beneath your oar. For example, my utopia is a home where honest communication triumphs over fear. Or, my utopia is a business that solves X problem without exploiting people or the planet. This is now your impersonal mandate. It is your North Star. Step 3. Practice the surgeon's cut. The next time you face a difficult decision, one that tempts you to make the tyrant's bargain, to act colder or harder than you are, I want you to pause. Take a breath. And perform a mental exercise. Visualize your utopia. See it clearly in your mind. Then, ask yourself 2 questions. First, is my intended action coming from a place of personal fear, ego, or anger? Am I doing this because I feel threatened, because I want to look strong, because I am lashing out? Second, is this action, however painful, a necessary step toward building my utopia? This is the surgeon's cut. It separates your personal feelings from the requirements of the mission. If an action is born of ego, it is the act of a tyrant. If it is born of necessity in service of your utopia, it is the act of a king. This will allow you to make hard choices with clarity and integrity, even if they come with a heavy heart. You are not acting for you. You are acting for the kingdom. Step 4. The burden ritual. A true king does not ignore the weight of his crown. He consciously bears it. This final step is about building the strength to do so. Once a week, find 15 minutes of complete solitude. No phone, no music, no distractions. Sit or stand in a quiet room. Close your eyes. And I want you to intentionally summon the feeling of your responsibilities. Feel the weight of your work. The emotional labor of your relationships. The pressure of your ambitions. The grief from your past. Do not push it away. Do not analyze it. Do not judge it. Simply allow it to be. Let the full weight of your life rest upon you. Hold that feeling for a few minutes. Then, I want you to say, either aloud or to yourself, these 5 words. This is the weight I choose. This is not an act of self-pity. It is the opposite. It is an act of profound ownership and power. It is you, consciously and deliberately, accepting your crown. By regularly and intentionally practicing this, you build the spiritual and psychological muscle to carry your burdens not as a curse, but as a source of immense, grounding strength. You are no longer running from the weight of your life, you are anchored by it. The visuals return to Canute. We see him after he has become king. He stands alone, looking out over a vast, cold sea. His expression is not one of triumph, but of infinite weariness and resolve. Narrator. Does this path truly work? Does it lead to anything other than a more sophisticated form of self-deception? For proof, we need only look at the outcome of Canute's story. His transformation is cemented in one of the most pivotal moments of his life, the assassination of his commander and father figure, Askeladd. A younger Knud would have been paralyzed by grief or exploded in impotent rage. A tyrant would have killed him for personal vengeance. But the new Canute, the king, does something far more terrifying and profound. He orders the death of the man who, in many ways, created him. And he does it not out of anger, but out of a cold, heartbreaking logic. Askeladd's vision for power was rooted in the old world, a world of personal charisma, chaos, and the singular glory of a flawed hero, King Arthur. This vision was fundamentally incompatible with Canute's impersonal mandate. Askeladd had to be removed, not as a man, but as a symbol. It was a surgeon's cut. Canute weeps as he gives the order, his personal love for the man warring with his divine love for the mission. He accepts the sin, pulls the weight of it onto his own soul, and solidifies his crown. He demonstrates that he is willing to sacrifice anything, even his own attachments, for the sake of his utopia. This is not just a fantasy. This principle echoes through history and psychology. Consider the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. His book, Meditations, is not a philosophical treatise for others. It is a personal journal, a series of notes written to himself to stay on this very path. He constantly reminds himself to detach from personal insults, to act for the common good, and to accept his duty, his crown, with equanimity. He was not trying to become unfeeling. He was using Stoic philosophy to channel his feelings, to prevent his personal ego from corrupting his ability to rule an empire. He was practicing the impersonal mandate every single day. Modern psychology also touches upon this, in the concept of post-traumatic growth. Studies show that people who endure immense suffering, loss, violence, disaster, do not always simply break. A significant number of them report a renewed sense of purpose, a deeper appreciation for life, and a reordering of their priorities. Their pain, their burden, when processed and integrated, becomes the very foundation of a more profound and meaningful existence. They do not discard their trauma, they build upon it. Canute's journey is an extreme, mythologized version of this psychological truth. His salvation was not found in escaping his suffering, but by finding a purpose vast enough to contain it. The tyrant's bargain ultimately fails because suppression is an unstable foundation. It requires constant energy. It creates paranoia, because you are always at war with a part of yourself. Canute's path, the path of the forged king, is one of integration. It is infinitely more difficult, infinitely more lonely. But it is whole. It creates a power that is resilient, sustainable, and true. Final shot. A close-up on King Canute's eyes. They are old now, filled with the sorrow of 1,000 difficult choices. But they are also clear, steady, and unbroken. The camera pulls back slowly as he stands alone on a windswept hill, a solitary king against an endless sky. Narrator. The crown will always be heavy. The path of purpose will always be walked alone. But the choice is not between weakness and monstrosity. It is between being a tyrant in a small, empty kingdom of your own making, or a true sovereign, bearing the weight of a world you have chosen to build. In the comments below, I want you to answer this, with the honesty of a king speaking to his own soul. What is the or you've mistaken for weakness, and what kind of utopia could you build if you began to forge it? If this is the forge where you wish to temper your own spirit, then join our stead. Subscribe to the Farmland Preacher, and walk this lonely path with us. Canute's journey was about forging a kingdom from the ashes of war and sin. But what of the man who chooses the opposite path? The man who seeks not to build a paradise through power, but to find one by abandoning violence entirely. To understand that, you must watch our analysis of Thorfinn's long road to atonement in our video, The Weight of a Human Life. Click the screen now. The journey continues.